Hi, friends. I'm Gail Wetherill, also known as the Dementia Nurse. Welcome to night number 5 of Unwrapping the Gift of Hope, a holiday event for dementia caregivers. Thanks for coming over. I appreciate it. Tonight, we're going to talk about a few tips and suggestions to help you get through some of these big feelings that come along with the holidays. The last few nights, we've talked about emotions and identifying those, the value of putting them down in black and white on paper and how that takes a little bit of the power out of them. So tonight, I wanted to share 3 websites that I really think you'll find valuable when you're looking to find your way through yet another set of holidays that just aren't going to be the way they used to be, and dealing with the losses that engenders and some of the sadness that comes with that. So, one of the websites I want to talk about is one called the Zen Caregiving Project. And I will have the links for these sites in the comments below the video, so you can find them later. But the Zen Caregiving Project, now don't be put off by the word Zen, because I know a lot of people that see Zen, then you start talking about mindfulness, and the next thing you know, they're like, oh my God, she's going to have me doing yoga up here in the middle of, a bathroom cleanup or something. And actually, I might be suggesting that at some point here, but not just yet. Some of you are familiar with mindfulness practices, with meditation. John Kabat-Zinn came out 20 years ago, 30 years ago with mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I can tell you it's on the surface, if you're not used to that sort of thing, it may sound like a lot of hocus pocus, but I've actually taken that course 3 different times over my lifetime, and I've always found it something to be really helpful with dealing with stress. So the Zen Caregiving Project actually helps caregivers focus on using mindfulness. And really, all mindfulness is a tool to bring us from out here into where we are and the moment that we're in right now. That's all it is. I don't know about you, but I have quite a few characters that live in my head. I call them the committee. And when my committee gets to meeting and, shame's over there saying what they've got to say, pride pipes up and says, no. And then self-pity chimes in, and, it's off to the races with the committee. And those thoughts just cascade and spiral until I feel worse than I did to begin with, or whatever the situation that triggered the meeting of the committee. So I think about mindfulness as a way of shutting up the committee, because what mindfulness requires is our full attention on where we are right here, right now, in this moment. One of the things that I really like about working with people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias is the fact that they only have right now, or eventually they come to that point where all they have is right now. They don't remember what happened this morning, and they certainly aren't thinking about or planning for tomorrow. So I think they have a lot to teach us about staying in the now. So in the Zen Caregiving Project, they actually have some courses and exercises and some literature that help you to apply basic concepts of mindfulness to everyday caregiving. And I'm going to give you an exercise that you can use to bring A, to shut up the committee, and B, to bring your awareness into where we are right here, right now, in this specific moment. Because honestly, the only thing we can do anything about is right here, right now, in this specific moment. So this little exercise, oh, I learned long ago. I'm not even sure where it came from, but I know that it's helped me a lot. When I get to really wigging out and the committee's just, oh boy, they're at it, they're slugging it out. Who's going to get control? Is it going to be fear? Is it going to be pride? Is it going to be self-pity? Those guys are real sluggers. So when I get these negative thoughts coming in, intrusive thoughts, or if I'm really angry, this also helps me a lot with that. And here's the exercise. Get somewhere, and it might be sitting next to your loved one in the living room while they're watching TV, or God knows, whatever you can give them to occupy them for a few minutes. And you're sitting there, and here's what you need to do. First, you want to close your eyes, which means you're not looking at the things around you. I call it mapping out the inside of my eyelids. So I'm going to start with my eyes closed. The other thing I'm going to do is put one hand on my belly and one hand on my chest. And I'm going to take a deep breath in and feel my hands move as I do. And as I do that, what I want to be paying attention to is the air coming in and out. I want to think about, how does the air feel? Is it warm? Is it cool? Does it feel like it's gushing fast or seeping slowly? And just take 3 or 4 good deep breaths just to break the fight or flight phenomenon for just a few minutes. So you take a few deep breaths, and then here's what you need to do. Without opening your eyes, you need to stay seated there until you can hear and identify 6 distinct sounds. It might be the sound of the heater kicking on. It might be the sound of your loved one scratching their arms again. It could be the sound of a car driving by the house, the song of a bird, the song of a drip, drip, drip of the faucet in the kitchen. Any sound, but you have to have 6. You have to have 6 before you stop. So you want to find 6 distinct sounds before you open your eyes and move on about your day. Now, I'm telling you, anybody can spare the whatever brief stretch of time it takes you to do that, to close your eyes and listen until you can find and identify 6 distinct sounds. And here's what that does. It short circuits those squirrel cage, hamster wheel thoughts. It interrupts them, because you can't be thinking about all these things that are, that the hamster wheel is throwing up in your face. You can't think about that and listen for these sounds at the same time. And what listening for the sounds does is it makes you aware. It brings you into the here and now, right at this moment. So that's just one little quickie that I really have found useful when I get to spinning to help me just settle down. Doesn't make the change the situation. It changes what's going on in my brain. And as we all know better than anybody else on the planet, it's what's going on in the brain that matters the most sometimes. So, but that little exercise is an example of mindfulness. Now, you know, as you may have noticed, I didn't have to contort my body in any way, shape, or form, or, you know, have any gongs going off in the background or a bit of incense or sage burning here. I didn't need anything. I didn't need any equipment, and I could just do it wherever I was. If you're driving, I wouldn't try it, but other than that, you can use it just about anywhere. So that's an idea of mindfulness. And I hope that helps you see that when we talk about mindfulness, we're not talking about, you know, some bizarre rituals that you're not familiar with and you're not really comfortable with. So, and in the Zen Caregiving Project, they have articles and courses and webinars, as I said, that teach you ways within your caregiving to use mindfulness. So I really hope you'll take a look at that website and see some of the resources that are there for you. The next website that I'd like to suggest for you is one that's called strugglecare.com. strugglecare.com. Casey Davis is a therapist and also a lifelong participant in mental health difficulties. Wow, that was a good way to put it. I'm right there with her, so don't think I'm dissing anybody. Casey Davis really, really, really hated when people talked about self-care. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty much in there, because when I hear self-care, what I hear is, oh, great, here's another list of things to add to my already overcrowded to-do list, when I can barely keep my head above the surface now. So adding quote unquote self-care is not exactly what I had in mind, and I don't really understand how that's going to help me. And what usually, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, what ends up happening is it's just another thing for me to feel guilty about because I'm not doing it. And I know that I should. I know that my brain knows that it would help me to do these things. And so Casey Davis came up with this idea. Instead of saying self-care, she calls it struggle care. And I like that a lot. The philosophy is that when you're struggling, there are things that you can do that will ease the struggle. And what she builds into is starting with the teensy weensiest building blocks. I mean, she works a lot with people with depression, and I believe, if I recall right, that's the primary mental health issue that she's dealt with. And so she starts with the person. We're at the level of not being able to even get out of the bed, let alone take a shower or pick up the phone or take out the trash or do a few dishes. And I really appreciate that. So because it's not hard to find where you are kind of on that spectrum of impairment, really, from all the heavy load that you're carrying. So struggle care is the notion that there are teensy, tiny, teensy, weensy, eensy steps that any of us can take. And if you take one step today, that's a win. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's something different from what you did yesterday, which is a step in the right direction. I named this series of events Unwrapping the Gift of Hope, because I do think that none of us can live without hope. And I think that most of the changes that come when we become a dementia caregiver are tied to a loss of hope. So whatever we can do to grab a hold of some of that good stuff is going to be a positive impact on our quality of life and on our loved ones' quality of life. So we start with tiny steps of things that anybody can do from one day to the next. And it is not, going on a $8,000 vacation. It is not, locking the door and taking hours and hours in a bubble bath with a few adult beverages on the side, which it may include some of those things, but probably modified to fit our circumstances. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm guilty of, if I can't do something the way that I think it should be, for instance, if I can't have an entire half hour in the tub with nobody knocking on the door and whatever else, that's the primary goal I'm looking for, is nobody bothering me for at least 30 minutes. Well, if I can't have that, then I tell myself, well, there's no use bothering with that. And that's kind of like cutting off our nose to spite our faces, because the truth is, no, we may not be able to get 30 minutes, but maybe we could get 15 minutes. And wouldn't that be better than none? Last year, or maybe it was a couple of years ago, I had a woman who was so discouraged. She had put up a Christmas tree. Her husband was the one who had Alzheimer's disease. And she had thought, well, I'm gonna put up our Christmas tree. So she put it up, and he just kind of watched her as she did it. But she had put on Christmas music, and the lights on the tree were pretty. And it was something that she really got some satisfaction out of. Well, 2 days later, hubby woke up before she did. And when she came into the living room that morning, hubby had taken all of the ornaments off of the tree and put them into a box, actually one of those big, humongous storage boxes, bins. And she was so upset. She was just devastated. And she was so upset. And she said, I can't have something nice. This is something that was bringing me great pleasure, and I can't even have that. And her response was, she took down the Christmas tree, packed it up with the decorations, and put them all away. Oh, I understand the reaction that she had. But I do think it was, in retrospect, and she realized it, a bit of cutting off her nose to spite her face. She was so frustrated. And I can understand it. And I am sure that most of you can understand it. But she had this image in her mind of how having that tree was going to go. And when it didn't go that way, she said, that's it. I can't have this. There's no point. And we end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater is what happens. So all of that is just to say that if you can't do all of what you may have done in the past that brought you joy or pleasure, maybe you can do some of it. And this is where our expectations come into play. And we can be the martyr. And I hope that word doesn't offend anybody. I'm using it as a bona fide certified dyed-in-the-wool card-carrying martyr myself, and say, well, if I can't have it the way I have it in my mind, then I don't want it at all because it'll be too hard. We have the right to feel that way and to take that approach. But we also can think about that, and we can choose to approach it in a different way. And that sort of thinking is a lot of what this website, strugglecare.com, talks about. It shows us way to adjust our expectations and to reward ourselves along the way of taking small steps. So I hope you'll give that one a look as well. So we have the Zen Caregiving Project. We have strugglecare.com. And last but not least, I'd like to suggest that you go over to thedementianurse.com. Okay, no, this is not where the commercial comes in this series, but I do want you to realize that we have a new program that is opening. It's open now, but the actual program itself launches on the 1st of January of 2023. And what this is it's a membership program for dementia caregivers. And there are different levels of membership that you can choose for yourself. And at different levels, there are different benefits and things that you have access to. So you can look and see what best meets your needs. I developed this and I call it the Caregivers Co-op. It's a community that's a bit different from a lot of the Facebook groups that we join. It came as a spinoff for me from the big Facebook group of Alzheimer's and dementia caregiver support group that we've been running for years now. And we're up to, I think last I looked, it was 57,000 members from over 100 different countries. Well, that's awesome, but it's also a very big group. And I wanted to do something that gave people more security, more privacy that they could count on, and that gave them more direct access for me to coach and help them. So it's little. And the long-term goal is to grow that. I do know that there are individuals out there who are interested in supporting a nonprofit organization of nurses that can coach and counsel dementia caregivers. And that's the long-term plan for that group. But we have to start somewhere. And you have to have, you have to show that there's interest and that people are willing to put a little bit of money where their mouth is on this before you can even apply for nonprofit status. And then once we get nonprofit status, there are lots of grants and donations and other opportunities so that we can offer more and more services to caregivers at little to no cost to them, which is what my ultimate goal has always been. And I do have a couple of nurses already who are going to be helping me with the launch of this project, because I really feel like nurses are their wheelhouse perfectly suits what dementia caregivers need, because brain failure is a physiologic phenomenon. And I think that coming from a nurse's viewpoint, that gives me a lot of advantages. There are lots of social workers and former caregivers who are working with dementia caregivers, but what I hope to bring, and I know that I do because I've been doing this for quite some time, I decided it was time to stop giving it all away for free and see if we couldn't build something more long lasting that'll go beyond just one person. Oh, so I wanted a forum where people could ask about medications, where they could ask about diagnostic test, and then on top of that, all of the rest that people ask about family relationships and legal matters and where to find financial help and that sort of thing. So a nurse-run community for dementia caregivers is basically what we have brewing over at thedementianurse.com. So we have talked about one little mindful exercise that anybody can do anywhere, anytime, that you don't have to have your eyes open and on the road, by closing your eyes and waiting, taking some deep breaths and waiting until you can hear and identify 6 distinct sounds. We talked about 3 websites that you can trust to have good information that have shown themselves to not just be trying to make a fast buck off of the suffering of other people. And we've all encountered those. So we talked about the Zen Caregiving Project. We talked about Struggle Care. And we talked about the dementianurse.com and the caregiver co-op that's starting up there. So I hope out of all of that, you'll find something that'll help you and that you can sink your teeth into this holiday season, which for the average dementia caregiver is really a very difficult time of the year. Andy Williams can sing all he wants, but no, it's not necessarily the most wonderful time of the year for an awful lot of us. And I'm here because I know that, and because my heart just breaks for you. And I wanted to do something, anything that I could, to let you know that A, I see you, B, I feel you, and C, you don't have to do this alone. So thanks for stopping by. We'll be here again tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, I'm Gail Wetherill, aka the Dementia Nurse, reminding you that what the brain cannot remember, the heart can never forget. Thanks for coming over. I'll see you soon.